Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
All right, how are you?
Good. So I did a recording yesterday for you, but you know what? I'm so freaking focused on the markers. I'm not just showing up as Allison, the coach. I literally have the sheet in front of me. And I'm like, and my friend had a great transformation, right? But I know it wasn't a great call. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna submit it or not.
Well, um,
I need to put the markers
what
away and
happens
just
if you pay too much attention to it?
Well, it's funny because Bonnie brought something pretty heavy last time, and I don't know if Lori told you about it. And I coaching, and I was like, you know what, I need to forget about that and just be where what she needs right now, and not even worry about it. And Lori said, you pretty much kind of did everything because and I wasn't even thinking about it, right? I was just being So she offered to do another thing where I don't. She's a coach. I wasn't coaching her on coaching stuff. I do actually help her coach her on some life stuff. So she said she'd do another one, so I might redo it and just be Allison the coach and not worry about being Allison the coach who's worried about markers.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing is if you look at if you use the framework instead of trying to dance around the markers, the framework has all the markers in it.
well, yeah, I
A
mean,
little bit
I think,
easier.
yeah, I think the biggest thing is just to if I do the beginning and the end, the rest is fine, right? And
Yeah.
that's what I just need to stop worrying about. But that might, that there's not and and it's just funny because it's not if I focus on the performative aspect, I'm not being a coach, right? So,
Yep.
the good news, I mean, I had like these great insights, but I kept saying, so what are you feeling? She goes, you asked me that same question, like, what are you feeling? And I'm like, yeah, I know. Um, and I was, and I guess I wasn't sure, I didn't realize at the time, I thought she was just giving me a topic to help me, so maybe I wasn't as feeling as connected, and then she goes, no, that was real. Cause before that, she's like, do you want me to give you something? Yeah, I said, no, I want something real, not just, hey, something that I can, because otherwise I'm not gonna feel it. And I guess I assumed I thought I'd already talked to her about this in her life, so I didn't realize it was still a real issue. I thought she was just making it up for me. And then when she's like, no, this was real. I'm like, oh. So I was like, okay, so I gotta find some more people to coach too, because I think the other thing is I know her stuff too well. And
Yeah.
sometimes but it was good to catch myself saying, you know what, the markers need to be in the folder, not on my desk.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's what learning, we're here to learn, right?
Yeah.
And I really like the book. It's not new. It's just, I took the classes in 2017 before, right? And so it's so good. There's like stuff that's just reminding me that, oh yeah, I need to think like that. So I don't remember specifically which was. I'm just gonna read it the first time because I want to highlight the heck out of it, but I'm like, I'm just gonna read it through the first time.
That's what
And
I
then
did.
there's some key stuff in there that really is like, yep, good to remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's because I've been through doing this a while, but I really like the writer. And not every shift is like, not everyone lands, right? But it's good and the writing's good and it's easy to absorb.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the way she has it set up, the framework.
Yeah. Yeah. I said I like it. I like it more than I thought. I thought it was just gonna be something I had, sure was supposed to read, and I'm like, I'm actually really enjoying it.
Good, good. Yeah, I mean, that's why I picked it. Because there's a ton of coaching books, but this one I thought was an easy read. And once you start getting into it, like you said, you want to highlight. And I was like, I waited and read through it once and then went back and highlighted. And
Yeah.
I love the book myself. So I said, this is a really good book because people will use it. You know, it's just not going to be like, oh, I had to read it, so I read it and it gets put on your bookshelf.
No, it's always, there's some good reminders of things, and part of the, doing this is to make sure, and it's interesting because I have, some of my executive clients, I'm gonna try to force them into the framework, because they often bring like three things they want to talk about. And I just have to get disciplined about one per session and just go deeper in it.
Yep. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Bunny.
Hi.
How
How
are
are
you?
you?
Uh, well, I'm still here.
Yeah,
Well, that's good.
Maintaining. Yeah, I didn't get as far as I wanted to so far this week, but I did um take care of myself yesterday, and I decided to be very measured with my abusive ex. And I replied to the application to finalize the divorce with a declaration that basically says I would like these very simple safety measures put in place.
but it won't have to delay it then.
Shouldn't, no, because it's not
Yeah.
another trial. It happens on that day. And I got his response today, and it basically says that's not the topic of the day and none of it happened whatsoever. And then I thought to myself, well, what did I expect him to say? Just
Yep.
deny. There was a third person present. And so the judge is either going to do it or he's not.
And what about your commitment? What about your commitment that you made?
To talk to the VA, no, because all of my time has been sucked up dealing with that. So I've had, fortunately, a full work slate this week. And so when I wasn't seeing clients, I was running into town to the courthouse and dealing with all that paperwork and making sure my safety is in place first, because that's the priority.
Right.
So I managed to rearrange new financing. It's not pretty, but it's better than the alternatives. And I have the safety measures in place. And if nothing else, I've called attention to him.
Good.
So eyes are on, and he's less likely to pull a stunt with everybody watching. But lie like a sidewalk, I've never seen anything like it.
So Cheryl's kind of coming in the middle of the story here, so I don't think Lori told her everything going on, so.
Oh, my ex assaulted me last Friday, and we're at the tail end of the divorce. We're waiting to sign, and he blew it.
In front of a witness.
Yeah. So I need to get my business up and running, and that is the thing that I'm focusing on, is getting to where I can get clientele coming in and get that working, because money solves a lot of problems.
Yeah. Well, I hope that all works out.
As if
It's,
I didn't have enough going on.
yeah, that's
You
tough.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough to deal with. But I'm glad that you're in a better spirit today. Even though it didn't
Make
sound like you got a
decisions.
whole lot done.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's see, maybe we can take your mind off of it a bit. Today we're talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about mastering active listening and reflection. Before we get to that though, I changed the schedule. So,
So we're pushing out the last week, 1 week?
yeah, so it's gonna be,
Oh, thank you.
let's see, so the 25th and the 27th, no class that week. So December 2nd is the group mentoring 3. And December 4th is the 15th, the class 15, the final class. And
Okay,
then the final mentoring and assignments are gonna be due the 19th, the week of the 19th.
Okay, hang on a second. So December 2nd is the November 25th class.
yes.
And
And
December 4th is
December,
the November 27th.
November 27 class. And then December,
Week of the December 19th will be our final mentoring and assignments due.
so everything due December 19th.
Hopefully before that but yes. Okay, hold on, I'm just updating everything. For some reason, I have the meeting invite 3 times in my calendar. Each time I get 3 reminders, which is great
The
because
CSV files only work in iCal. I tried bringing them into Gmail, Christine was showing me how to do that, and I get the record of the date, but no link to join the class. And then we tried to find it in my Up Coach profile, and the buttons are not there. So the only way I can get into the class is to go find my iCal.
Oh, that's so weird because I download it and put it right into my Google.
I know, we did.
I did too, yeah.
One date at a time, because I didn't have a master one, so I put all 17 or 18 in, and the links are there, but the details to join the Zoom are not. They're in the iCal for some reason.
That's really weird.
I'm here, figure out a way to do it, but by
Yeah.
the time I figure it out, we'll be done.
So I have a question about the whole process stuff, right? So we're gonna do 2 recordings that you're gonna review? One now and one another one, or how many recordings are we gonna review over time?
Well, 2 in your final.
Okay,
And then if we need to, we'll do a third.
and then for my PCC, do I have to submit 2 calls or just 1?
2.
Okay, so we need 2 good calls for me.
Yes.
Okay,
We'll probably need a third one for you.
Am
What
I
do you
the
mean?
same?
No, you need 1.
why would I need a third?
Well, because we want to choose between 3.
Oh, I see, yeah, okay, that's why I didn't wanna submit this 1 call, cause I knew it wouldn't hit the PCC markers. And I'd rather try to get it, a good one, in case it happens to be a good one, right? So,
Yeah, because you
okay,
always want to have at least 3 to choose 2 from.
okay,
And then, so that could be your final, or the 2 recordings you send in for the mentoring, and then we could also do a third one.
You said no. Why
Okay.
is mine different?
Because so this course gives you the ACC, which is the first level. Allison already is an ACC, and so she's going for her PCC, which is the
Okay.
next level. PCC is required to have 2 recordings, not 1. And you're not submitting any recordings anywhere, Bonnie, except with me. Allison is a different path. She has to submit it to the ICF.
So I'm doing the ACC.
Yes, ACC path, and so you'll do the recording at the school level with me, and then your final, and then if that doesn't pass, we still have the one-on-one mentoring, the last recording. So we have 2 recordings and a final for you. One of those 3 has to pass, and
Okay.
then all you'll go to the ICF for is your final written exam.
but
So
you need 100
ICF.
hours but you need 100 hours of
Yeah, when
coaching.
you have your 100 hours of coaching.
So it's 100 hours and then an exam.
And
And
a
then
call.
will there be any recordings for that, or just the 100 hours and? Okay,
No,
so
you just attest to your 100 hours on there
then
when we
the
fill out the
exam.
application. Yeah, and I'll go over that in our group mentoring 3. I'll go over everything as far as application.
That would be ICF certification.
That's the credential. Yeah, the ICF credential.
Okay, and so eventually I'll have both.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
you'll have 3 because you're getting a CPC and an EQCC from this course. So you're getting
That's
2
right.
certifications for this course. So
Yeah.
you're getting 2 certifications, and then you're gonna apply for a credential.
Yeah.
Okay, so ACC and what?
No,
So
this
from this course,
class,
you're getting the CPC, which is Certified Professional Coach,
Yep.
and you're getting the EQCC, which is the Emotional Intelligence Certified Coach.
Okay.
That's at the school level, and that's the certification. And then
Okay.
at the ICF level, that's what they call a credential level, and then that's the ACC.
Okay, so I'll eventually have 1, 2, 3
Yep.
qualifications. Okay, clear as mud.
told you, just reach out anytime I can help explain anything. I told you I'm here. Okay, and then the final package we're putting through to you besides the call is just a workbook.
Yeah.
Okay,
The homework assignments, yeah.
and it's all in the workbook, right?
Everything's in the workbook,
Except the contract.
except the contracts and the PDF that the Jung report gives you.
Oh, the what report? The new report, the
When you
testing?
take that Jung assessment, it gives you a PDF.
Okay. So it's
There's
the
a
workbook?
young report that we have to take.
That's the
Yeah.
Johari thing, right?
Yeah, the Johari.
Yeah, that's coming up next, I think, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's the workbook, the contract, and the Johari. I just want to have the 3 things we submit.
For the contract, that's our coaching contract that we're supposed to customize?
Yes,
Okay.
there's the contract and then there's the onboarding, but
She, Allison already has them.
yeah, she already has her. So you can just, and again, it could just be pretty generic, but just a little bit more customized than the template.
It's good. The template's actually really good. It makes you think.
Oh, thanks.
No, everything's good. Everything's great. I just trying to just figure out like, is it, do I, I have my onboarding, but it's, I mean, making me go back and think about things I've been doing for a while is not a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there was a few things I'm looking at your contract, like, do I need that? Like, I don't need certain things because I'm not doing technically life coaching, but my coaching that people who, is going to evolve over time. Over time, I'm really going to be an executive life coach is really what I'm going to be. It's just, when I can get the business, that's where I'm moving towards. So it's like
Yeah.
having those things, it's not ever a bad thing to have in there.
I just had to do all of mine for counseling, so I'm in that thought mode at the moment.
Oh, good. Yeah, so then that'll work out good for you to go into that.
A lot more paperwork for me. Blech.
But yeah, I finally started catching up on the homework. So I need like one more good session and I'll be close to caught up.
Good.
I'm loving that book, by the way. You guys were talking about it when I got in. I love it. I've written all over it. All about vertical and horizontal thinking now. It just clicked.
Oh, I'm so glad.
The thinking vertically rather than horizontally, because horizontally is temporal, right? Vertically, that's the stuff that stays, your values and your faith and your hope and your resilience and all that stuff, right? That's where you think. So loved it.
Cool. I carried around with me, so not only did I read it twice already, but I have highlighted and I printed out the cheat sheet thing that she has. I printed that out. I have that in my planner, and then I keep the book in my briefcase. So
That's
you
great.
it's
Yep.
it became one of my favorite books pretty quickly.
Yeah, because I thought about rereading the CTI book before I did the PCC test, and I don't think I need to if I read that book. Because first off, again, I think I kind of, the test was stupid easy for me, right? I think I told you I finished it in 45 minutes, right, and did 87%, right? So I just love coaching and it makes so much sense to me and it resonates. So and I'm not an overthinker and tester. I've always been, I have confidence in my answer and I move on. I wish I was like that in all other aspects of my life, but
But you didn't take this new one,
no,
right?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And this one, I guess it was like two right answers, right?
Two right answers. Yeah, we'll go over it in the last mentoring. There's
But I
some.
mean, tests have always not, been something my brain works well in that
Mine
environment. So,
doesn't.
yeah,
Everything I know falls out right before I enter the room.
yeah. Well, I also know I only had to get 70% and I knew that, so I studied though. I mean, I prepared. I was very well prepared when I went in with all the practice tests and everything. And so I didn't just go in and say, so I think what I felt was I was very confident in my preparation. That by the time I went in there, Cheryl did my ACC, so this is my second round with Cheryl. But yeah, I just felt, I felt really prepared that by the time I got in there, I had done the work. And I think that's how I've always been as a student. Like I know if I'm prepared and the test isn't out to trick you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it isn't. But I will say that the new test, the the four choices are very closely related. More
Yeah.
so
Don't
than
like
the
that.
other than the old test. But
Yeah.
we'll go over the sample ones and it won't be a problem.
Yeah, and I'm getting a few more clients, so I gotta look at my notes and when I think I could submit. I'm hoping it's January instead of March, but I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I want my PCC.
I don't even know what my niche is yet. I don't know how I'm gonna get here.
I think you do. I think you do. I think you're just having trouble naming it.
I
You
have,
named
yeah, I
it
haven't
before
named
when
it.
we did that session a few weeks ago. I think you have all the content in there.
It's thinking. It's clean thinking, but I
Yeah.
haven't figured out the language for it. Then I was reading Cheryl's stuff on the business startup side, and when you niche and you talk about it, you have to be in the zone of what people are looking for. And I don't know if I don't know if they know they need this yet.
So that's where your market research comes in. And there's a market research section in that business builder.
Okay.
But, you know, that's where you just do some, they're like informational meetings, right? Like interviews, like informational interviews. But I have a list of questions that you customize and you go out and you ask a few people, 4 or 5 people. I also have a written survey that you can copy and paste over into like Jot form or something. You can ask people to take the written one. I always suggest you do 5 written and 5 oral. And record the oral one so you don't have to take notes. And then put it through Chat GPT or something else where you can get the transcript. And then you have their exact language and their exact pain points and their exact, aspirations. And it's easy to start creating the content and naming things through that information.
Yeah, for me, it's just the sort of language piece. I've been using all of my counseling clients as coaching practice. I'm still following the same because presence and attending and rapport, all of that stuff is common. And they're trying to solve a problem. So, what do you want to talk about today? I heard you say. So, I'm doing all the stuff with them. And then when I come in here and try to do it while somebody's watching with Allison, I forget it all. So,
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, like I just did my recording and I was so self-conscious about it that I wasn't yeah, I wasn't just being Ellison the coach.
yeah, we'll be fine once we're not students.
I was doing that with a coaching, but just trying to be focused on so much on the markers that I wasn't just being.
Yeah. It'll get better.
It already
Yeah.
is. So I believe you.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna, who coached class? Allison, you coached class?
I coached, yes.
So Bonnie, you're gonna coach later tonight.
All right.
And first we're gonna go over the chapter for today. I also will have, I'm getting 2 more recordings together, so you won't be coaching every class. You'll observe 2 more sessions at least. Later on in the course, so I'm just getting that stuff together. But I think the practice is good to go back and forth because we're in class 9, so really there's only 5 classes left to coach. So, well, I'm in the mentoring. So if we put 2 more recordings in, and that should work out well. Okay,
How many classes total?
well, you have the mentoring and then the actual course classes.
Okay.
So there's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, because 15 is the final, we don't count that. 5 and then the 2 mentoring, so you have technically 7 classes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So, we're gonna talk about active listening and reflection. So of course, active listening is a, huge foundational piece to coaching, because for you to reflect back, for you to ask your next question, for you to, know which direction the client wants to go in, basically to do anything, you have to be actively listening to your client. So it's what we call a cornerstone skill in coaching. So they're all important, but there's some that we consider cornerstones. And it allows you to go deeply with your clients, and it helps you to understand and connect with them on a deeper level. And it really involves just fully concentrating on the speaker, understanding their message, providing feedback, withholding judgment. So when we look at mastering active listening, we consider that it requires practice. and also a genuine interest in the speaker's perspective. If you're not interested in what your clients have to say, it's going to be really hard for you to be actively listening, because your mind is just going to start to tune them out. And so sometimes your mind might do that anyway. And so we have to prompt ourselves to become more present so that we're actively listening. But in general, if you are curious about your clients, that makes you interested in what they have to say, whether that's an opinion, how they're feeling, what's going on with them, their situation, whatever the case may be. So when we look at listening, there's a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is passive, right? Things are going on in your area and you're hearing things, right? Listening is an action word. You are actually making it a point to listen to what somebody's saying. So it's more of a verb. It takes action, it takes effort, takes a decision to do it. Where hearing, again, is just a passive process. You don't have to be consciously paying attention to it, but you know there's noise or there's talking or there's something in the background. So we're always exposed to noise, right? Background noise. And that background noise can be anything. It could be, again, it could be talking, it could be cars in the street, it could be, fire engines going across the town, or, the waves on a beach, or, a baby crying, whatever it is. Like, we hear tons of things going on in day-to-day life. Unless you're gonna, corner off yourself into a room, you're going to be hearing things all the time. So hearing basically is the ability, the physical ability to detect sound. And then when we look at listening, that's the action word, right? Where we actively process what is going on around us and who's saying what, and paying attention to the rhythm, to the words, to the annotations, the everything, right? The paying attention and interpreting what we're hearing. So you can hear things and not really interpret it. Again, it becomes like background noise. But when you're listening, actively listening, you're interpreting what those sounds mean. If you look at, well, I'll say sometimes, like if you're if you're listening to a speaker, right? And sometimes you'll feel your mind wandering, and you'll, a couple of seconds or a minute or 2 minutes will go by, and you'll come back and you'll be like, oh my gosh, what did they just say? Like, I heard them talking, but I have no idea what they just said. So in that moment, you weren't listening, but you heard the sounds, but you were not listening because you weren't focused in on it. You weren't paying attention. You weren't interpreting the sounds that you were hearing. So we want to make sure that when we are listening and that we are interested in what our clients are saying, we're listening on a deeper level. We are interpreting what we're hearing. That interpretation the process of interpreting that we go through, that means a lot on emotional intelligence, because how do we listen to people when they speak? Are we listening with an open heart, open mind, non-judgmental, empathy, or how are we actually listening? So emotional intelligence is actually a big part of active listening, because if we don't have an open mind, if we aren't empathetic, sympathetic, if we're not looking for cues from the person that we're listening to, if we're not interpreting the cues that we get, then we're not utilizing emotional intelligence. We're not picking up on what the client really is saying, or the person in any conversation. Doesn't matter if it's, in your coaching or somewhere else. But so it's really important that we make a conscious effort to concentrate and understand the meaning behind all sounds that we hear, but the meaning behind the sounds, the words of the people that we're listening to.
So I had talked about this with Lori, but then the book had countered, it was opposite. Before COVID, I only did audio. and I would have like a spot, I would like a chair I would get in, I would almost be leaned forward. And I could feel every breath, I could, I mean, I could feel everything. And then we get to Zoom and it's so distracting. And I would much rather just do audio because I feel I'm more powerful and more present, to be honest, when I'm audio only. And not audio on Zoom, I mean like in my little chair, doing that. And so and then the book talked about how video can be a distraction. And Lori's like, video is better because you can see everything. And so I was curious your take on that.
Yeah, so both of them, there's pros and cons to both. The video gives you body language, right? Which can be huge. But when I started 15 years ago, you listened on bridge lines. There was no Zoom, there was no, you had a bridge line or teleconferencing line, and that's how you coached. And yeah, we got really good at listening because, and I had a spot on my wall that I would look at just to keep my attention,
Yeah.
there. And it didn't matter where I sat though, but I could, as long as I looked at that spot on the wall, I heard everything. I could hear the slightest change in their
Yes,
tone
exactly.
and the breath, I could hear those things.
I
Is
could
it harder to
physically
do that?
I could physically feel,
Yeah,
I would have physical reactions to their reactions.
yeah. So is it harder to do that on Zoom? I think it is, but I think it brings another dimension. Like I said, the body language is in the facial, especially the facial expressions. Because most of the time you only see somebody from the, whatever, the waist up or whatever. Sometimes just their head, their neck. So if you get really good at reading the facial expressions, and there's all kinds of things you can do to better read facial expressions. You can Google it. There's like, courses and videos and stuff that you can, like, just quick things that you can do. But that can bring a whole nother level of understanding, connection, awareness that you can't get with just listening with audio. So I think they both have, a bunch of pros and some cons, but I think you just have to, you have to look at and maybe, depending on your client, if your client is distracted by Zoom, then maybe it is something that you switch over to audio, but that really, I think it's something that you leave up to the client if you're willing to do that. But, for me, I could not do video anymore. I would be, at this point, I would be less attentive than I was when I originally, because that's all I knew. Was listening, but now I look for the reactions from people on the Zoom. And so if I didn't have that, I think I wouldn't be as attentive. So it depends on you. It depends on the client. I don't think there's any one way that's right or wrong. So if you find it's not working for you to do video and your clients don't mind doing audio, then try it. See if you can still pick that up and see if it's, your clients. The point is the client though. Are the clients able to still perform well with only doing audio because everybody's used to Zoom now?
Yeah, I know. And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
I throw it out there just as an option,
Yeah. So,
but no one's taken me up on it yet.
wait, I have to plug my computer on.
Men seem a little more open to it. Women always seem to want to be on it. Yeah.
Really?
I have to deal with people with psychosis, so I have to be able to see their eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm finding this year is the first time I've done online counseling ever, and it's really different.
All right, why isn't this plugged in? Or charging? Oh, there we go. That's okay. I'm still putting my office together, so I'm like walking around stuff. Yeah, so that's something I think you have to experiment. But if you're offering and nobody's taking you up on it, that's a big indicator right there.
I know. I threw it out and saying, that but I try not to, yeah. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not as good of a coach when I do it, so it's like, yeah, it's finding that
Yeah.
balance.
All right.
Okay, I was just curious on that.
Yeah. So the other thing here is like while hearing is a natural ability, actually listening is a learned skill. And it requires practice and effort to master. And again, it's hearing the words that are being spoken and paying attention to the tone, the body language, other nonverbal cues, facial expressions. Just all of it put together gives you a different experience when you're listening. It also involves asking questions, getting clarification, engaging in dialogue to make sure that you're fully understanding what you feel you're listening, you're hearing, you're listening, is telling you. So, some strategies for active listening and coaching is being fully present. So put aside your own agenda, focus entirely on what the client is saying. Avoid planning your next question or response while the client is speaking. Now, I know newer coaches do this, and so that's fine. That's how you learn. But once the client stops talking, that's when you start to formulate your next question. Because you've heard everything the client said, and now you can kind of summarize that and say, okay, here's the next natural progression to my next question. So you don't necessarily want to, in the long term, generate questions while your client is speaking. Open body language, so use nonverbal cues such as nodding, maintaining eye contact, leaning in slightly, which I do even when I'm teaching, but I definitely don't when I'm coaching. Just to show engagement, encourage the client to communicate openly. Paraphrasing, so that's where you're restating what the client has said in your own words to ensure that you understand it. That also shows the client that they're being heard, right? That's really important. People want to be heard. And if they're paying you to coach them, they definitely want to be heard. Like that's what they're paying you for, to be heard. So, just, and also to have them feel like what they're saying is valuable, right? It's not just, we're not just, brushing it off or whatever, right? We're listening, we're engaging, we're reflecting it back, and we're saying, yes, your feelings and your words and your thoughts and your beliefs, they are valid. They all have value. Clarifying questions, you want to ask open-ended questions that prompt the client to elaborate. This helps deepen the dialogue and also uncover any underlying issues. Managing silence, so learning to be comfortable with silence. Giving clients space to think and feel can lead to important insights and breakthroughs. And I'm going to say this with a lot of love, and don't be insulted because I'm the same way, but all three of us, we're talkers, right? So we have to watch this because we could get into storytelling so easily. We can get into explanations and things like that. We have to learn to be silent in those sessions and only ask the question that makes sense, not elaborate unless the client is not understanding something. And just being very succinct in the way that we ask the questions and the way that we reflect back. And then when we allow them to have silence after they answer a question as well as before they answer the question. So not only are we like asking the question and giving them a ton of space to think about it and answer. The great thing about video now, when just kind of going back to that is like, we can see when a client is actually thinking about something, right? That was tough to tell on the phone. Like, are they thinking about this here? Are they stumped? Like, what's going on here? You can basically tell usually from video, if they're gathering their thoughts on something versus just like stumped. But when we give them that space after we ask the question, that allows them to, think deeper on their answer. But even after they answer, allowing the silence afterwards for a good 10 seconds, maybe 15. Because people tend to add on to what they say, right? They, not the last word of that sentence sometimes is not the final word. And so if you give that an extra 10 or 15 seconds, it does two things. Now that helps you gives you some like a breath to formulate your next question, So you're not doing it when the client is speaking. But for their sake, it also allows them to add on without losing their chain of thought. Because if you jump in with a question right away and they had something lingering in there that they wanted to say, you've knocked it right out of their mind by coming out with that next question. So manage that silence and give extra space so the clients can get a little bit deeper, have insights and breakthroughs, and if they have add-on thoughts that they're able to express them. Avoid interruptions, allow the client to finish their thoughts without interruption, even if there is a pause in their speech. Now, there's a caveat to this. You can interrupt clients if they're going off topic, right? You want to bring them back to the topic. If they're storytelling, bring them back to the topic. But you're not interrupting just to interrupt, right? You're interrupting to say something like, especially if they get into the storytelling phase, you can say something like, I'm sorry, let me just jump in here real quick. What about such and such, or what about that story is very specific and related to this outcome that you want in today's session? Bring them back, ask them to clarify it and to pull out that nugget and leave the rest there, right? We don't want the storytelling.
I liked in the book, because there's different ways to approach it, and I can't remember right now, but they're almost able to say, like, why is this relevant to, or they even had that one example of, is this what you want to be spending your money and time on?
Yeah.
Like telling the story that you already know. I mean, what I would say is that, we're not coaching the story. We don't want to deepen the connection to the story. We're trying to move forward from the story. So what do I need to know?
Yeah.
And
And that's the thing, it depends on your comfort level, right? So you can be
Yeah.
very forward like that, or you can do it like I said, and just like ask them to focus in on what is that one piece that's going to help and leave the rest.
I usually just try to deflect it. I just go into it, and while they're talking, and I'm like, so what would be important for us to move forward on that, or how does this make you, I just I ask them that, and they don't even realize. A lot of times it's like, I just put the bumper guard up and bounce them back.
I
Yeah.
try to set the parameter up front because I don't want to have to interrupt them if I can. I'll say, tell me the story in the sense of this is what we're needing out of it. And they're pretty good about that.
Yeah, at CTI, we're like, bottom line it. What's the bottom line? What do we need to know about you? What do we need to know about this?
I do want to caution about saying, tell me. Tell me is pretty directive.
Yeah.
This is a thought. Same thing with let's do such and such. If you find yourself saying let's, that means you're leading. So keep that in mind. Tell me you're directing.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah,
to,
what is important that I need to know in
you want to
this
use the
story?
what or the how.
Yeah.
Okay, so reflecting and summarizing. So we talked about how you can listen actively better. Now, when we look at reflection, it's really a big part of active listening because it helps the client feel that they're understood and supported, and it helps to clarify anything that might be, unclear. But it helps to reinforce for the client what their thoughts are, right? What they've stated. So now you're reflecting it back with what you understand, and the client's able to say, yeah, that's it, right? Or no, you know what, that doesn't sound quite right. And it's either like maybe you don't have it, but more so it's the client realizes what they've said, and now they're like, no, I don't really mean that though, or I don't really feel like that's the issue. And like you give them a second opportunity to examine what they initially said. And that's the great thing about reflecting and summarizing. Yes, it helps you keep on track. It helps you both, they make sure you're both on the same page, but it also gives that opportunity to the client to clarify, to adjust, to add to if they have to. So summarizing at the end of a segment of a conversation, you want to summarize key points. This doesn't mean that you're giving a laundry list, by the way. You're not going to say, oh, I heard you say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, you're going to pull out the things that were really important, and you're going to reflect those back, those key points. Again, it helps solidify the client's thoughts, feelings, and it ensures that you're both on the same page. The other thing is reflecting emotions. so kind of going beyond the words and reflecting emotions, the emotions that are behind the words. And this is like just acknowledging the different states that our clients come to sessions, or the different stages of emotions that they go through in a coaching session. And then the thoughts and feelings behind those emotions. Again, it helps with mutual understanding, but it also helps to validate the client's emotional side of it. A lot of times clients try not to be emotional, right? Like they don't want, they feel funny about being emotional or bringing up their emotions. And when we reflect back the emotions that we hear, or maybe the emotions that we don't hear that we feel should be there, although we don't want to should clients, but sometimes we know like there's, okay, there, you had to be disappointed there, or, that must have hurt or something, right? And the client is not acknowledging that. We're able to reflect back what we're not hearing. So I imagine that would be a very hurtful scenario. I'm not hearing, you express that. What's behind that? What's behind the avoidance or whatever, like, your words, depending on the situation. But this goes beyond exactly what you're hearing to sometimes what you're not hearing. And that's just as important. And then checking for accuracy, of course, that's checking in with the client to make sure that you have understand what they're saying, what they're not saying, and always asking for their input, and then just being able to adjust in the moment based on their feedback. When you say, so what I hear you saying is yada, 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 is that correct? Do I have that right? Would you add anything to that? How, again, your language, however you would ask that question. But when you ask it, it allows the client to give you input, and either to say, yeah, that's exactly it. Like you nailed that, right? Or, there might be a little bit of a different take on that. And then they might, expand on it a little bit more. But whatever the case, you've opened that up, you've given it the chance, right, for the client to confirm. Okay, so questions or thoughts so far?
I like the idea about giving them that second chance. That's a neat way of thinking about that.
Yeah, that's what I use it for. So I just feel like, because I know myself when I'm, speaking or even if I'm in a coaching session, if I hear it back, it gives me that opportunity to say, yeah, is that what I meant? Is that really what my thought process was? Or is that what I'm feeling? And then I can say yeah or no. Okay. So connecting active listening and reflection with emotional perception. So when we look at active listening and reflection, it's not just about the words that are being said, right? It's about the emotions behind them, but also the perception that the client has of themselves, or their own emotions. And sometimes they don't understand their emotions, or they've misinterpreted, like maybe they overreact to something because they've misinterpreted how somebody else, said something to them or meant something, or they are not, I'm trying to think of the word, they're not in tune to their own emotional reaction. And so, sometimes, like for instance, have you ever gotten mad or you're just not real sure why you got mad? Like, why am I really mad at that? Or, why did I react like that? And that's because we're not in tune to our emotions in that moment. And we just, for whatever reason, we went from like 0 to 10 and we don't know what happened to, 1 through 9, what happened during that journey. We're just there. So, when we can really listen to the client and help them to understand their own emotions behind the words that they're saying and the situations that they're bringing to us, it allows them to be more accurate and more in tune to themselves. And then, of course, it helps us to tune into the client's emotions. And it helps us to have a better conversation with the clients, which helps us to better support them throughout the coaching journey. So there's, it's a plus, 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 plus all the way around. So some emotional cues to look for, pay attention to the tone of voice, to the pace, the volume, and the body language. Nonverbal signals can provide insight into the client's emotional state. Pace, just to give you an example, if somebody's talking really quickly, that can be interpreted different ways, and you would look at other things to confirm which way, to look at that. But usually if they're talking really fast, there's anxiety, or sometimes there's avoidance. So they're trying to get over something really quickly. So they're talking really quick, so they don't have to deal with the thing that happened 5 minutes ago. And so you're trying to listen to them really talk really fast, trying to get through the situation, the scenario. And at the end of it, you're like, so what happened? So pace can give you some insights. Volume, when people get excited and they talk loud, what is that excitement? Is it a positive excitement? Is it a negative excitement? Of course, tone of voice can give a lot of insight as well. So we want to always, try to tune into the client's emotional state. And also we can state what we feel like their emotional state is. But asking a question, open-ended question, is usually the better way. Well, you could say, I'm observing, I think I'm observing, you being a little bit agitated. Would that be accurate? Get kind of the confirmation. Well, okay, they say yes. Okay, so what's behind that? Then you can ask the open-ended question, but you could just ask the open-ended question first. What are you feeling right now? And if they can't name it, then go through a little exercise to help them name it. Or you could potentially say, if they say I'm having a hard time kind of what I'm feeling, I'm not sure how to describe it. And you could say something like, well, what I thought I heard was, agitation. What do you think? I mean, you could always do that as well. Empathetic engagement. So use empathy to connect with the client's feelings. This helps create a safe space where clients can explore their emotions without fear of judgment. And then responding to emotions. So really incorporating the client's emotions into your responses. This shows that not only are you listening, but you you can see how they feel based on what they've said and the way they've said it. Okay, questions about that part? Okay. And then we have the mastering active listening and reflection through practice. So everything that we do requires practice to get better at it. So you want to engage in regular self-reflection and get feedback from clients or peers. Practice your active listening and reflection in every interaction that you have, not just in coaching sessions. But you can do things like role-playing exercises where you receive constructive feedback in a safe environment. You can, obviously use other coaches to role play. You can coach, like say a pro bono client, and with the understanding that at the end that you'd like to get some feedback, right? And of course, your mentor coach, me, always can give you the feedback as well. So you want to do those, those self-reflection as much as possible. The other thing, the real easy thing to do is record your session. Ask the client permission to record the session. Make sure you have a policy on how long you keep your sessions. You shouldn't keep them longer than 30, 60 days tops unless you're doing it for a credential, in which case you tell the client that you'll have it until the credential passes. But record the session and then listen to it and observe yourself and see where you've missed something, or, where you maybe I notice sometimes that I do a facial expression that is not the best facial expression. And so, I worked on it. So you can pick up things that you need to work on. I felt like it came off as judgmental. Now I did ask the client, they said it didn't, but to me it did, and so I would work on that. So you get to see different things when you record it, right? You get to hear and see different things. Okay, so how do we integrate all of this into our coaching sessions? By creating a structured approach where you consciously use these skills at specific points in the conversation. Now, what do I mean by structured approach? I don't mean that we're leading, but it is something that we are cognizant of, that we make sure that we include in our sessions. You set intentions before each session to focus deeply on what the client is saying and then reflecting effectively. So this is just like what I say is take 5 minutes before each of your session and just kind of go over these things and tell yourself that you're going to be actively listening. You want to listen for what you're hearing or what the client is saying and what they may not be saying. And that you want to reflect back to maybe 3 times during the session to make sure that you're on track and that nothing has to be clarified, those kind of things. You can use tools like journaling to reflect on your listening and reflecting skills after the session. You can also take notes, obviously, and you can record them and listen to them afterwards. So these are the ways that you can, increase your active listening and reflecting back.
In CTI, they talked about level 1, level 2, and level 3 listening. Level 1 is like you might say your client, and we're planning to go to Hawaii, and I start going in my head, oh, I love Hawaii, right? And level 2 is you're actually present. Level 3 is you're present and noticing the environment. And I think between therapy and then CTI, I think what I've learned is, I have a wandering mind. I have an ADD mind, I'm ADD, but what I've learned is like, oh, you got lost, just come back. Like I don't berate myself, I don't judge myself. It's just like, oh, okay, that's nice, come back. It's just like my cue is come back.
Yeah,
So I
no,
think
that's
that's
that's a good thought because because people you don't even have to have ADD or ADHD. You could just be somebody that got lost and like, what do? You sit there and panic and put yourself down and break yourself? No, because it's not going to do any good, right? So like you say, you just leave it and you
Or
come back.
anyway, if
Yeah.
you stop to do that, you've disrupted yourself further.
That's right. That's right. You're taking yourself further out of the game at that
yeah.
point.
And then if I lost something, I just ask them, would you, is there, would you, what would, what's another, I can't say like, what's another way to say that? Or, can, let's, I'd like to, what else, or tell me more about, to get back in there, but it's really about, and then what I used to do is, I'm so very self-critical, the perfectionist and all. And so I now have a 3-question debrief that I do with myself. That's a lot kinder. And it's like, what did I do that I liked? What did I learn? And what would I like to do better?
Yeah, and that's a great way to do it.
Because if I went to what did I do wrong, then it's like, then I trigger, my bad stuff. So that's my approach now.
My clients get to critique me at the end of basically every single session. So nothing is left. And I don't have to assume anything.
Well, that's tough at the end of every session, I think. I wouldn't be able to do it at the end of every session. I do a midpoint evaluation. I have, a list of questions. And at the end of that, it says, what could I be doing better? And what have I been doing well, like that we should keep doing?
Yeah, I praise it differently. I was like, what would you like more of? And what would you like less of? And I ask it when I feel like it's timely to ask it. I don't have a schedule. I mean, I do in a 6-month contract, I do a check-in in the middle, especially if there's a manager involved, funding it. But it's more of the more of and less of. Is it, as we continue to work together and we want to deepen the relationship, what could you use more of and what can you use less of, to me is I'm really all about trying to be kind to myself in the process, right? So I try to phrase it in a way that is also in service of my client and in service of me at the same time.
We
Yeah.
use measurement informed care. So the clients complete questionnaires between. And then each session I have numbers and I know if they're going up or they're going down. And in my private practice, I include the therapeutic alliance in there with that questionnaire. So it's all blended and it actually helps formulate the next session. So I don't know if I'll, till I get into coaching, whether I want to employ it that way, but the measurement informed is really, really helpful in terms of keeping the therapeutic alliance or the coaching alliance, because that's where the change comes.
Yeah. So you have to be careful about using things like that. I mean, if you can adapt it, that's great, but we don't want to be doing things that too much that lead us in a certain direction with the client. Like I always tell people, use a coaching plan, right? This is a coaching plan is great to use with a client. You're going to be with them 6 months. Great. Map out their goals that they want to accomplish in those 6 months and the sub goals. Like, what do you have to complete what goals have to be completed in order to reach those higher goals? And then kind of look at it loosely at a 6 month, at your 6 months together and say, okay, so, this is with the client, you're working with the client. So what do we need to really look at accomplishing in the first month, the second month, the third, whatever, right? Now you have this loose coaching plan. But are we coming into the session saying, okay, this is month 1. So these are the things that you wanted. This is what you identified as you wanted to talk about in one of our first sessions. Is this your topic? No, we can refer to it. We can say, okay, so we came up with a coaching plan. It's up to you what you bring up in these sessions. So they have the coaching plan, right? You've created a coaching plan. They have it. Feel free to use that coaching plan throughout the sessions. Like, it's up to them, right? So, so we have to be careful about tools that we use that might like prescribe the next session. Unless the client wants it to be that way, obviously, that would be a consideration. Does that make sense? Now, if you're doing things corporate wise, that might be a little bit different, because corporate might give you I've had clients where the company tells the coach what they want covered. So, that's a little bit not coaching too. So there's a consulting piece to that. So, we just have to watch what we're doing. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay. So client communication aspects. So in coaching, active listening involves using different elements of client communication. So there's some key aspects to look for and pay attention to. So content, listen to the actual words the client's using. What are they talking about? What is the subject matter? How are they describing it? And what's their perception of it, or two different ways. Context. So understand the circumstances or the background of the client's situation. How does the context influence their perspective? But there's a caveat to that. We don't need the full story, right? We just need the very specifics of how is that circumstance or that background affecting this situation. That's all we really need to know for the client's sake and not for ours. How is that influencing their decisions or not influencing their decisions, whatever the case. Emotions, so detect the feelings behind the client's words. What emotions are they expressing or not expressing? What are you hearing or not hearing? Beliefs and values. So, beliefs and values are going to make up a lot of what anybody does, right? Our beliefs and our values drive all decisions. Whether we're cognizant of it is a different story, but just like emotions drive decisions, we always want to be able to help the client to determine what those feelings are behind, the words that they're using, and what the belief is behind that emotion, or what is the value, and then what's the belief behind that value. So whether you're using values or emotions, it's the same thing. So look at the underlying beliefs and the values that are influencing their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors. Goals and desires, helping them to really identify what they truly want to achieve, or what they're working towards. Because sometimes people, and I've experienced this a lot with clients, they're working towards things that other people want them to work towards, not necessarily what they want to work towards, or goals that are not necessarily their goals. They're based on somebody else's ideas or somebody else's thoughts or or other people's expectations of them. And so that's deep dive work. Usually in life coaches do that kind of deep dive work into the goals and the desires, making sure that it's really the client's goals, right, that they're working towards. So helping them to identify what they really, 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 really want and what they really want to move towards, and making sure it's theirs and not anybody else's. Fears and challenges. So just kind of being alert to any concerns or obstacles that the client might be facing. Or maybe they're trying to describe it, with their words, and we want to make sure that we're asking questions to clarify it so that they're clear on it and that we're clear on it as well. Energy levels, like when you hear energy levels go, from even to up, what's that about? Are they excited? A good excited, or are they agitated? If they're really flat, is it like nonchalantness, like they don't really care? Are they hesitant? Is there some, fear there? So really looking at their energy levels and whether or not they shift in a session or around a certain topic. Nonverbal cues, which we've talked about a little bit. Sometimes what isn't said is as important as what is said. So look for like hesitation, size, change in body language, tone of voice, pace of speech. Excuse me. Nonverbal cues often say way more than words do themselves. And then patterns. Notice any recurring themes or patterns in the client's speech. Do certain topics or phrases come up repeatedly? Or even certain nonverbal cues come up, like do they sigh with the certain words or certain situations all the time? Something that can give you an insight into what they're feeling or thinking around something. So look at those patterns or themes that might be coming up. And then judgment and self-deprecation. So sometimes clients are really self-critical or they have unrealistic expectations for themselves, just like we do, right? Like they do it. So learning to recognize that in others and listening for the opportunities where you can explore those judgments that they have for themselves and their and that self-criticism. And then also explore how it's impacting their goals and their self-esteem. Like when somebody is consistently self-critical, it's hard to reach any goals. It's hard to be successful, right? Because everything that they do, whether it's successful or not, is not seen as a success. And so it's just kind of a snowball effect. So we want to help them to see how those negative thoughts are actually impacting their goals and their dreams. And also maybe impacting them negative, substantially negatively as well. Discrepancies. So look for opportunities to challenge when the client's actions aren't aligning with their words. That's probably one of the easiest things to pick out, and that you'll probably see at least once in a relationship, oh gosh, get the word, in your time with the client engagement. So looking for well, for instance, if they committed to an action plan, the previous session, and they come back in and they didn't complete that plan, and you kind of ask what got in the way or what happened, and what they say just doesn't make sense. It doesn't align with what they previously said in the previous session or something, and you see that discrepancy. Don't be afraid to challenge the client. Of course, we want to do it in a good way, but we want to challenge them. We want to say, I hear what you're saying today, but I also want to mention that the last session you said such and such. And so what do you think is happening with those two different views or those two different outcomes or whatever the case is? So have them look at both and challenge them to really work it out. Limiting beliefs, so helping them to identify any limiting beliefs that they have, so that they can move forward in their goals and not hold themselves back, get in their own way. So active listening and reflecting are more than just techniques. They're actually an approach to engaging with clients. And it shows our clients that we respect them, that we care for them, that we are committed to their success. And then as we continue to develop these skills, you'll find that your coaching sessions become deeper and have better outcomes, and they're more insightful. And ultimately, your clients have better transformations the more our active listening increases. We have a little bit of a activity here.
Okay,
The first one here,
oops, I'm trying to. pull it
it
up
was
here,
for-
Okay,
it's for the book. Do either of you have your books in front of you?
it's 10 feet away, I can go get it.
Yeah, go get your books.
Okay. Not 10 feet away, it's under my feet in my backpack, because I read it in the coffee shop yesterday. Oh, I got a nice comfy chair and read. My, okay. I have my book.
Of course, I don't have mine. It's downstairs, but let me see if I can pull up my audio or my
I'm in a tiny house, there is no upstairs, downstairs, everything is 10 feet away.
I do have the ebooks. Let me see if I
I've written all over mine.
Yeah, we were talking about that before you joined, like, I'm reading it without writing in it the first time, because I could highlight the hell out of it, but I'm not going to the first time.
I don't know if it's gonna work with just two people, so if I can get mine up, at least I'd be a third. But I don't really know where my ebook is, where I put it. Don't see.
I'm up to chapter 5.
Wow, I just finished chapter 1. I'm doing it slow and steady.
No, I'm enjoying it.
I am too. It said only read like a couple shifts at a time, so I'm trying to not do it all at one sitting,
Yeah,
trying to slow
I
it down a
did give
little
you a
bit.
reading schedule if you wanted to follow that, but you don't have
Yeah,
to.
no,
She
it's
does
too
a
hard. to go back.
retrieval practice anyway that's really helpful anyhow, so.
Yeah, I
And then
like the
I
retrieval,
highlight
yeah.
and write all over it and stuff, and so I can just go back and skim my highlighting, and then I remember what I read, so.
Yeah, I can't find my electronic version, so it's not gonna work, this activity, but for two people, but trying to think, how can I how can I change it to be effective? Well, the point of the activity is to actively listen. Have you ever played Whisper Down the Lane?
Yep,
Okay.
or we call it telephone, but yeah.
Yeah. So, what you first start out with is not what you wind up with at the end. And that's because people are not actively listening, right? They're hearing what they want to hear, what they think is being said, but they're not really listening to it. So these activities are to help you listen better. The pass the ball is kind of like the whisper down the lane. And then the popcorn reading is the same thing. I used to do popcorn reading so I used to teach junior high and for a very short period of time. And it was an activity I did because middle schoolers just don't, junior high is like a middle school age. They just don't listen, right? They don't retain anything. They're not really comprehend, like they don't want to, they're just not, they're in their own world, at least the ones that I was dealing with. So I did popcorn reading to help them get better at listening. And, I would call on the first student and they'd have to read the first paragraph or however much they wanted to read. And then they had to call on somebody else to pick up where they left off. I can't tell you how many stop and starts we had until they got used to it. Right. It took a couple months. And then it was like a light bulb went off and everybody was picking up where they were supposed to pick up from. But it was a habit of theirs not to pay attention to what was going on with anybody else or what the teacher was saying or whatever, right? Like they were in their own little world. And so that helped, that popcorn reading helped them to actively listen. They had to pay attention. And they got rewarded when they did, and they got things taken away when they didn't. So they had, we did a point system for all kinds of behavior stuff. And so they didn't like it when, like, they would wind up at the end of the week with whatever, 100 points less than somebody else because they weren't listening. And all they're doing is sitting in their chair anyway. So you might as well listen. Right. So, and get your points. So, hopefully, that created better listeners overall. But that's the point of these two exercises, is to get you to, to practice in a more public way, to actively listening, because sometimes it's a whole lot easier when it's just you one-on-one, right? But it becomes harder when you're in a group. So, a good thing for you to do, is if you are in a group, or say you go to see a speaker, or or you're whatever, you're sitting in a group listening, is to, in your head, do kind of like a pass the ball, or whisper down the lane, kind of repeat back where they left off in your mind, and see if that's accurate, right, in the conversation. Oh, they just said, they just ended with, such and such. The next person that contributed to the conversation, did that reflect back to that ending that you saw, that you heard? It sounds convoluted, but it's not really. When it's just listening in the conversation and seeing who picks up the conversation, right? Like when I'm talking in a group, I expect people to respond, right? So if you're looking at, are the responses aligned with where the speaker left off? And are you picking that up? That's helping you to align and helping you to actively listen. So that's something that you could do in a group. Trying to think if I have any other tips, not off the top of my head, really. But any questions about anything in this chapter? Okay. All right, so we're gonna take a break, and then when we come back, we're gonna have the coaching session, and then we'll have a debrief of it, and we'll take it from there. So it's 7:20. We're gonna take 15 minutes, so 7:35. I'll see you back here. Thanks.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
So I moved into the office so I could maybe have more privacy than last time, so I can show you some emotion.
Great.
Your image is frozen, Bonnie, at least for me it is. No, your voice is. Yeah, I'll have a couple minutes of chaos because I moved into the office, but the.
Your image is
Chris
frozen for me. Although it looks stunning right there. It doesn't look dorky. Hang on a second.
It's not
Oh,
frozen.
I had to plug it back into my hotspot. See if that's any better.
So the dog's in the office with me. Chris is walking in the door, so Kiwi's gonna go crazy for a few minutes. So if we can not start coaching until I deal with the dog, and then he'll be like, "Oh, but you're closing the office door. Well, I have to be with you." With my dog. Oh yeah.
Oh,
right.
stop the phone.
Okay,
Yes,
so, let's see, done.
Yeah, okay, he just realized he's here, so he thought, let me. I know, I know, I know. Oh my God. Go, go, go,
I
go,
know.
go.
Mine's outside the door whining underneath it right now.
No. He'll be back. I mean, he's my dog, so he's always gotta be where mom is.
Mine is allergic to something, so he's itchy all the time, and I haven't been able to figure it out, so he's distracting. He's a sweet boy, he's just annoying and stinky.
All right.
He's just going to get it out, and it's bad. Anyway,
Okay.
gonna-
So we're good now. Let's get started. So Bonnie, you're gonna have 30 minutes. It's 7:40, so you want to get done by 8:10.
Okay,
All right, and you have the floor.
all right. Hi, Allison, are you hearing me okay?
I am.
Oh. Yeah, my internet's a little sketchy at this end, so I have to keep it plugged into my phone, so let me know if I freeze up on you again.
Okay.
Okay, so what are you bringing me today?
Nothing as juicy as you brought me. I have this mental block on my coaching business. I got this great big client, and it's a former company I work with. And when I first started coaching, I feel like I reached out to everybody I ever worked with. And so I'm spending all this time and energy doing cold outreach when I was in the industry for 30 years, and there's some great connections there that already know, like, and trust me, respect me, all of that. And I'm trying to figure out what is stopping me from reaching out, which could only help me.
Right. So you've got a task to do to bring you forward in a something that you want to do, but this particular task is causing hesitation.
Yeah. Yeah, I have like a block that I'm not doing it.
Okay, so is the block in your mind? Is it something that you feel in your body? Where do you feel it?
I don't know if I feel it. It's like, I think it's just a story I've made up.
A story?
Yeah.
What's the story?
The story is that they don't want to hear from me. I'm pestering them. They know I'm a coach now, and they're going to think I'm selling to them. And people only reach out when they want something. And all these classes, they're like, reach out to people and just be genuinely, like Rich Litvin, I think, Cheryl will know who, be generally interested in connecting. It's like, if I wasn't a coach, I wouldn't be reaching out to connect. I'm just going to be honest, right? I can pretend that it's always great to reconnect, but to pretend that there's not an agenda there is bullshit.
Okay. So it, to me, this feels like a values question. Something is sort of conflicting with something that you believe.
Well, I don't know if it's a value. Well, I don't know, maybe it is. There's just something about being respectful and, authentic is, really important to me. But I think it's just more an insecurity than a value.
So as you iterated back to me a prediction about what people might be thinking when you call, it sounded like you thought that they maybe would think of you as being salesy as opposed to genuine, and genuine is very important to you. So these people obviously really matter to you too.
Oh, I mean, matter is a big word. I mean, I haven't talked to a lot of them in a really long time. I think that when I worked with them, I enjoyed that experience and we enjoyed the connection. And a lot of them have moved up in the world since then. Like that's how I got into the one company I'm in. I mean, he's now COO and he was just running support at the time. So, right. So a lot of them are up there now and they'd be great assets. And I've had some people help me. I mean, really help me. The few ever, but it's just, I think because I think because I don't hear from, like, it's always shocking to me who you thought you had a great relationship with and then you don't hear back from them. And so I use that as fuel to the story.
Right? That makes sense. So these are people that you've worked with in the past and helped in the past?
Well, I worked in the corporate world for 30 years
Mhm.
at a lot of different companies, so probably 10 different companies. So I have, and I was known, pretty well known for different reasons, partially because of being the only woman, partially just because how I walk and carry myself and my effusiveness and connection with people is pretty powerful. But I'm told I'm memorable. I'll just say that, um, in a good way, in all the good ways. But there's just something. It's like there's a wall between me and just doing it. And if I do it, I'll do just a couple people, instead I could literally go through like LinkedIn and pick out every company I've worked for and probably come up a list of 200 people to reach out to. And it would probably give me the financial freedom I'm craving. But there's something like something holding me back still.
So these are people that you've enjoyed speaking with in the past. Then you'd be calling them up kind of out of the blue. And you gave me a list of things that they might be thinking that it sounds like not what you want them to think. So, do you have any evidence that what you're guessing they're going to be thinking and feeling is true?
Well, excuse my language, no one's told me to fuck off. But I also don't hear from them, right? And I think it's as we're sitting here, I'm thinking that a big piece of it is, again, I don't think because you're not from the coaching, Rich Litvin's this guy about you have to enjoy, creating clients as much as you enjoy coaching. And the reality is, I love connecting with people. It's like jumping in the water. I don't like initially jumping in the water, but once I'm in, I won't get out, right? It's the same thing here. It's like I hate that initial piece, but once I do, and it's ironic because I've worked for 7 startups in sales where I had to reach out to people and say, hi, you don't know me, but give me 5 minutes of your time and I'm going to make your life better. But now it's me. But I'm not really selling to them. I don't want to coach them. I want them to refer me. And it really is, would just love to reconnect. I'd love to share with you what I'm up to. I'd like to hear what you're up to and see if in our new whatever, whoever we are now, there's any opportunity to support each other. I mean, it's not more complicated than that, but I'm making it more complicated than that.
What
And I
kinds of
don't,
things are you? Oops, sorry.
I guess I'm proactively avoiding the hurt of feeling rejected when I don't hear back from people that I thought I had a connection with. Or I already reached out to them years ago, so should I, if they see their LinkedIn, they'll see, oh, it's the same reaching out 4 years later. And I remember a former coach would say to me, well, they could be different people now. And that's how I got into this one, right? I reached out to someone, but there's just something holding me back from this being into my mainstream process of just like 5 people a week, just reaching out and just, connecting. So I don't know. That's what I'm struggling with.
Okay, so you're struggling to reach out. You've told yourself some stories that make it sound like a really almost kind of a negative thing. I haven't heard any. I've heard you say positive things to them, sort of in practice, but I'm not hearing anything positive back. Do you have some alternatives to the negative response? Is there any other possible positive response that could come back from him instead of the negativity?
Well, yeah, I said I'm on the one new client because of it, right? And so there is evidence that it can work. I think it's just I think it's different because these are people, I just know how many people reach out and selling to people all the freaking time. And I'm trying to say, if I don't, some people I'll text, right? If I have their phone number still. Other people, it's LinkedIn because they've changed companies. So the emails I have from them no longer work. And I don't want to be yet another person reaching out to them on LinkedIn. And I mean, if I put my logical brain on, logically, a lot of people don't check their LinkedIn messages. So not hearing from them, I shouldn't take that personally, right? But the other part of me is just like, oh, they don't want to talk to me, or they think I'm trying to sell to them. They think I want to coach them.
So there's a lot of self-talk going on for you. You're answering them. You're guessing why they might or might not be responding back. Do you have a personal feeling when somebody's reaching out to you doing the same kind of thing and you're the recipient of their call?
Oh, no, I mean, I can logically tell you it's always wonderful to hear from past coworkers, and it's funny. I love analogies. My sister, unfortunately has had a lot of surgeries and all these scars on her because of it, and she used it as to push people away. And I said to her once, like a breakthrough in a relationship, when I said, how nice of you to decide for other people that you're not worth getting to know because you're scarred, right? And it's like, how great do I decide that I'm not worth reconnecting, so I logically understand it. I can, I mean, I logically can tell you, yes, nothing bad will happen. If I practice my 4 agreements and don't take things personally, I can logically tell you all of that, but I'm still not doing it. It's just like, I coached somebody yesterday, and I use this analogy, and I just thinking about how appropriate this is right now, where she wasn't dealing with something. So I said, okay, so you have this slow, long, horizontal current going versus a quick spike that might hurt, but then it's over, right? In dealing with a situation with somebody. So you're just letting this current. And I think for me, I'm in this, I didn't realize, it's funny how that happens. I didn't realize that, I'm like this current of just frustration and the business not doing it and versus this spike. And I always wonder, is it fear of success? Like, oh my God, I can finally get this thing cracked. So it's not like a struggle. Am I addicted to the struggle? Or is it really the story? But I think it's the story. It's like I'm bracing for impact when I send the message out, like, yeah, I don't know. I know I'm rambling.
No, you're making sense to me. You're talking about, this current and sort of prolonging the inevitable when you could solve it fairly quickly. You've told me that generally people receive you well, they remember you well, but you've already talked through all of the logical stuff. Yet there's something that's holding you back.
Well, another piece of the story is, I reached out to most of them already once years ago. So they're going to see on LinkedIn, oh, she reached out 3 years ago. She's reaching again. So that's another part of the story. As tough as I come across, I'm really sensitive. And I don't know what I'm afraid of, because none of them are jerks, and they're never gonna say to me, go away, or why are you bothering me? They just wouldn't respond. Which I've had some do, and so I don't know, it's just I don't know why I'm not getting out of my own way on this one.
So you said you don't know what you're afraid of. Have you identified it as fear?
Well, yeah, I think there's like fear of the rejection. Fear of them maybe talking about, saying, oh, Allison reached out to me, she was trying to sell to me, yeah, there's like this fear of damaging my reputation, damaging their memory of me. I don't know. I'm really trying. I haven't been, that's what we're talking about, is I haven't been able to pinpoint, because I'm pretty good at coaching myself and figuring all that out. And there's something here I'm not. I don't know.
Right. You don't
'Cause-
know.
Because
And
sometimes I'm like, are you addicted to the struggle? And if you do this, you're not going to be struggling anymore. Do I not want more corporate clients? Am I really, is it a personal rejection? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been able to untangle that yet.
so if you picked one of those questions and you could hear an answer really clearly, which one of those questions do you think would be the most fruitful?
I don't even remember what the 3 questions were.
Talking about fear of the struggle.
Yeah,
fear of success,
addicted to the
rejection.
struggle. Yeah, damaging my reputation, or well, I think each one of them I think they're all gateways. I don't know which one. I mean, I think if I really, start meditating and release and start calling in, releasing anything, and it'd be easier to call them, I think. But if I also just do some reach outs and nothing bad happens, I can build off that, right? I think each one of them is a path. I don't know which one would be the bigger linchpin,
Mhm.
right? I don't know. I mean, if I could just not give a shit and just reach out, like some people are machines, right? Um, but I'm not built that way.
So all 3 of those things feel very threatening to you.
2 more than others, I think. Well, 3, yeah. I mean, there's nothing I can do about if they get the message from me and just roll their eyes. I can't do anything about that. And I think, don't be so arrogant that they're gonna be talking about you in back rooms, because they're probably just gonna not just ignore it, right? So it's more, is there something I have to release to just let myself do that? And is that release, release the addiction to the struggle, and or is it the release is fear of repercussions from these people? Or fear, now I would say repercussions, fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection.
Like
You
I have
have
to
a
say, when I reached out to one of my old bosses, who I'd sit in his office all the time, and we talk about real estate and investing and laughing, and we just, as people, we really connected. So I didn't like not hearing back from him, and then the other boss from the same company. Now the boss above them I've heard back from, but like I had great personal relationships with these people. We had so much fun working together, and it just really hurts that it was just dismissed. Like, and I think that's probably a piece of it, right? Is that these are 2 people that I literally spent, days and days and days with, and not as just as coworkers, but as humans. And I
Mhm.
felt very disposable.
That's hard. And you're recalling that feeling.
Not feel good.
No.
It doesn't even feel good, like reliving it right now. It just felt shitty.
It is. Is
Yeah.
that the feeling that you're feeling as you think about making these calls?
I don't want to feel like that again, because it feels really shitty.
Yeah, it does.
Like I ran to one guy, he's a bullshitter, but he lives in the neighborhood. I saw him, and then we were catching up, and I told him about, what happened to me, and he was like, "Oh my God, thank God you're still here, and we definitely need to get together, and I will this time, I promise." And then crickets, right?
Mhm.
And this guy's so well connected in the industry, that it would be great. You know, another one who's another really well connected, it's like we'll get together and I mean, we had a personal relationship, we had a little thing together for a while before he was married and before I was, you know, with my partner. And we still get together for lunch once in a while, and all of a sudden, like, he's not responding. And I know I shouldn't take it personally. People are just really busy. Like Scott's got 3 children of, you know, and he and but it's really hard not to take it all personally. So if I don't do anything, then I won't get disappointed or hurt or feel rejected.
Mhm.
So I
So you-
guess I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather have the financial stress than the rejection, which is really shitty. Sorry, I use that word a lot. Sorry about that, but really is. I guess I'm saying I'd rather be stressed financially more than I want to want to feel more personal rejection.
What about being stressed financially is easier than the rejection?
But it's just more comfortable. It's less painful. I wouldn't say it's a good thing. It's a good feeling. It's just a less bad feeling.
It's less bad. So feeling broke is less bad
Well, I'm
than
not
feeling.
broke. I'm not broke. I'm not broke. I'm not broke. It's cash flow versus, you know, no, I could retire if I wanted to, so I'm not broke, it's cash flow. And just making the business a profit center, you know, versus a challenge every month. And to have more money to be able to do more fun things and not have to keep digging into my savings and all that, like, you know. But like my dog might have to have surgery, I'd have to come up with $10,000, you know, while we're trying to buy a house, right? You know, it'd be nice to not have to worry about that kind of stuff, like know that the money's there to do that. And so yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if it's yeah, I don't know those two, like I said, unraveling it, which two is stronger, I don't know, like the addiction to the struggle or the fear of rejection, I think they become like best friends.
So are you saying that you do feel a little bit addicted to the struggle? Is that an invigorating force for you?
Not invigorating, it's funny, it's just something I mentioned to my clients about. I said, you know, you're in this known state for so long, you don't know what this other state will feel like. You're in the friction state for so long, you don't know what the flow state will feel like. The flow state feels uncomfortable and the friction phrase feels like known, right? It's like learned helplessness, right? You know, it's like a learned helplessness phase, and it's just like, so that's the safe, that's the known. And so, you know, the unknown, and other stuff is tying in, you know, is not just that, it's just, you know, not feeling good about myself since you know, my health scare, I'm not in as fit and lean, you know, as I used to be. So there's that self-confidence is down a little bit, and so nobody else cares. They're just so grateful I'm alive. And it's not like it's even 20 pounds, but it's just my image, you know, my image. So there's you know, so there's all this other stuff tied into the fear holding me back.
Okay. So there seems to be, from where I'm sitting, a little bit of a theme here, and that has to do with the fear of rejection, and there has been an impact to your self-esteem and time lost and possibility of people not responding and not reaching out the way that they it felt like they should. So
Or
this,
would, or not should, but would, I would
right.
say.
And these are things that are reaching out, and authenticity, you stated these things are important to you. So there's a lot of things sort of coming together at the same time. And I'm hearing you process it logically. I'm hearing you sharing, you know, what you would share with other clients, and those and working it out rationally. And you've given me all kinds of ways to overcome rationally, steps that you could take and breaking it down. And so there's lots and lots of cognitive analysis. But the fear and it feels like, and I may be wrong, but a little bit of insecurity in that, to me, feels like the hump that you're struggling to get over. And almost to a little bit of confusion, like I have this long history of success, so where is this coming from?
Well, I think I'm not just illogical, because I've talked about the emotional feeling of like, I don't want that hurt, the hurt of rejection, right? I think that in the past, there was a story I made up because my last job almost got pushed out because of the boys. And that I looked at myself as, oh, she can't handle it, she's now a coach. I'm done with that. I am really proud of who I am as a coach and the business I do and all of that today. So I don't have that insecurity anymore. I think there's something about, well, it's twofold, right? I've already gotten the sting of rejection because a lot of people I reached out to didn't. And it just really hurts because it really shatters what I thought I had with these people. And that really hurts. So that's not logic. That's not logic. That's real emotion, right? It really hurts. To have your history with these people kind of just nullified in a way, and or feels nullified. It might not be nullified, but it feels nullified. And so I'm really avoiding feeling like that more because it really hurt.
It
And
does.
yeah, it really,
Yeah.
really hurt because I can say that, I'll tell you, like, I'll give you an example of the kind of relationship I had in the industry. I'd go up to headquarters for one of my companies, and one of the people there said, everybody loves it when you're in town. You bring so much joy to the office. It's just like you really change things when you're up here. And I looked over at one of my male sales counterparts and I expected to get the male roll his eyes. He goes, no, it's really true. I know how hard you work and how stressed we all are trying to do it, but you just bring the temperature down when you're here, and it's just like, and everyone wants a piece of you, right? So that's the reputation I have. And so it really hurts. It really hurt that the people aren't responding.
So if you could find a way to get to what it is that you're describing is great, these relationships and connection and doing the calls and things that you need to do, what would that look like and feel like to you that you could move forward?
I don't know. I think that just talking about those connections, it's like there are people that tried to help me that, and I think, I just have to say that I think I just have to be okay. It's like if I had one great conversation, could that be enough? Like, do I need it, do I need it to be 80%? Do I need it to be 5%? Do I need it to just be one? Because look what one happened. One's turning into, I got 2 clients and I might have 3 more by the end of the year at a really nice rate. So maybe I just need to change what success looks like for it. And it's like I have low expectations and high hopes, but I think I have to reframe this, not make up a story of why I'm not hearing from them. I think is gonna be the biggest piece of it. Just to know that they're busy people, they might not be on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean they don't have a fond memory of me. It just means that now is not the right time to connect. And if I can make that peace, right, and then I could move forward. I don't know if I'm there yet, though. I'm getting there just talking about it.
Good. So as you share this alternative that they might be thinking, that's not rejecting of you and it's making sense and nothing personal, how does that feel different in your body than the previous feeling where they were just cold rejecting you like you'd experienced before, or not connecting the way they should, the way you'd experienced before?
Well, like before, it's like hard to explain. It's like there's a wall at my forehead. My head just can't, and now it's just like I just felt like my body just relax a little bit. Like it's weird. It's like from my like the circular area here just kind of felt like it like my nervous system just calmed down a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, just there was a little bit of calm, like, okay, it's just really not that big of a deal. just connect with who you connect with, and you don't have to make up a story. And when I said it, just like there was like a physical release in the core of my body.
And so you're feeling a little bit less of a block.
Yeah, that wall, it's like weird. It's like a plate in my, I don't know how to describe it. It's like I get this plate in my forehead, like I'm trying to go forward, but I can't. And it doesn't feel like it's there right now.
Just sort of drop down into here and it's just
No, it
feeling.
didn't drop down. It's because that was a bad feeling. This is a good feeling.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that bad block feeling is gone and you've got a more relaxed feeling around your chest
Yeah.
and solar plex.
Yeah, I think sharing that story with you about how people made me feel, it's like that's the truth. That's who you are. And it doesn't change if they don't reach out to you, that you're the good person that brought light to this, 1,000-person company, on one floor of a building, and 500-600 people in the office there, and that they just like that I brought joy to the whole office is a pretty nice thing to hear. And you're one of the nicest things I think I've ever heard in my career, because it wasn't about what I did, it was about who I am, right? And pretty great. So I think I need to kind of tap into that feeling when I reach out to people. It's like that's your truth, and their response doesn't change that truth. And I think that's the connection I was missing before.
Beautifully done. I noticed you got really excited and animated when you were talking and sharing about the good experiences that you had, the truths that people have shared about you. And I could actually feel that in myself too. So when you talked about the block, I could sort of feel that. But when you got all animated talking about these histories and these accomplishments, I could feel that right through the screen and you lit right up.
Thanks. Thank you. It's funny, this weekend we had a romantic dinner with my partner, and we haven't just sat and had like really like romantic talks for a while. And I asked him, I said, first I asked him, what do you love about a relationship? And I said, what do you love about me? And it really was about my attitude, the joy, and all of the things I bring to the, one of the things around. And it's like, that's who I am. And them responding to me doesn't change that. And I have to remember that.
Yes.
The most important person in my life said the same thing. And he's like, you don't realize when we're out how well you're just like a magnet and how people connect to you. And I just have to remember those things and just give them more weight than this other story.
Right.
But yeah.
So how are you feeling at this point? You were talking about the block. It seems to be sort of relaxing. Is there any other areas you'd like to explore?
No, I think I think I'm good. I think that when I do the reach outs, I think I need to almost kind of like replay what I just shared with you to get me in this space, right? So I do think I can't just sit down and be, okay, I'm going to go to LinkedIn and look at 10 people and do that. It's like, I can make the list, but when I go to do the work, it's like I need to reconnect with the woman that went up to the headquarters and everybody said, how much joy you bring, right? I have to bring her to that conversation and not the, I'm sorry, I'm bothering you type of thing to it. So that's, I think, what was missing before was how to get myself in the right headspace. What is that right headspace and how to get there? And I think it's just remembering that Apogee was the company, remembering that Apogee story, and then the conversation with Chris this weekend to reinforce that and channel that when I reach out to them.
Well, when you replay the video, you're going to see smiles on both of our faces because it really is magnetic. It really is. And your stories, you talk about being sort of perfectionistic. I can sort of see that pressure in there, but ultimately it feels like you've arrived at the real truth, which is you're amazing. You almost can't even really fail. That's the vibe that I get from you. And so I know just from the little of that I've gotten to know you, you know how to solve this. But I do also hear that there's some hurt there. As strong as you seem, you are tender and you are real and you are genuine and you do care to actually help your clients. And I'm confident that that's how you'll be received. And I do hope you go back and listen because it really is a lovely story. I love to hear the success. It's very encouraging to hear. and it's your story. You own that. So as we're closing up here, did you have any further thoughts or things that you would like to explore?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. She is.
All right, thank you both. So Bonnie, how did you feel about that session?
I'm still feeling, when you first start playing an instrument, you can't just express, you're still figuring out your fingerings and remembering keys and chords and hitting the wrong one and aiming for one and getting another. So I still feel very clunky. But and I realize too, this is too personal, but I really do enjoy the story. I really do enjoy watching people light up when they tell the truth about themselves, and I don't know if I should enjoy that or not, but I do, and I can't help it. It's part of that sort of genuine positive regard. And so when she's feeling sad, I'm feeling sad. And when she's lighting up, I'm lighting up. And it's hard for me to think of the question when I'm just wishing she could see the beauty.
So it sounds to me like you're having a hard time separating yourself from the emotional side. So you're kind of getting wrapped up emotionally in the client's emotions and their thoughts and their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So
Up
that's
and
something
down
that you're
with
gonna
that.
really have to work on, because that's gonna interfere with your
Mhm.
coaching ultimately. Um, yeah, so that's just something to work on. This is new for you, so that's it's just gonna be something for you to you're aware of it. So just making sure that you go into coaching sessions being aware of it and utilizing the tools that you're given to kind of keep that start to create that separation.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, and I could see, I could see pieces of that throughout the session. So just going through, I think what I want to do is just go through the feedback form, and then, whatever questions or discussion. We don't have too much time, but, the first and foremost thing that is that, the coaching agreement.
Mhm.
This is such an important thing. If you don't get anything else out of this class, I want you to get the coaching agreement. Coaching agreement, topic and outcome. Why is it important for that outcome? All four of those pieces in the model. And where do you want to start?
Right.
Those four things. So you asked what did she come with to the session today for topic, and that was it. We didn't get any outcome. We didn't get the importance. We didn't ask Allison where to start, right? So I think that's really the focus for you, is because once you have that coaching agreement, I feel that will help with the emotional piece, because you're going to have something very specific to help the client with, right? To work on with the client. And then you can put your attention to that. And, the storytelling is either going to work towards that. And if it doesn't, then it's going to cue you to say, well, I have this coaching agreement and this isn't serving that coaching agreement. So it's going to make it easier for you to see, first of all, notice that. And then secondly, to guide the client back into the topic, right? Into the coaching agreement. So I think that's the very first thing that I want you to concentrate on, is getting that coaching agreement. Topic, measurable outcome. What is it? What do you want to have by the session? How are we going to measure that? And then why is that important, or what's going to change for you to have that? Or there's different ways to ask that question. I just give you examples, but pick your own language and what you want to have in there. And then, you know, what's important for us to address, or what's the first thing that you want to, you know, talk? Where should we start? That's the easiest thing to say. So where should we start? And that allows the client to lead, in that agreement. The second thing that I want you to work on is your questions. So most of your questions were close-ended. Is and do are your two go-to words. And I've said this for years, everybody has two words that they use in their close-ended questions. It's different, you know, for different people, but yours are is and do. So every time you start to feel yourself saying is for a question, I want you to put how in front of it. It's going to force you to reframe that question. These are very basic things to help you to start, right? So every time you start to say, you know, is that, oh, wait, how is, and then reframe that question to be an open-ended question. Every time you feel yourself saying a do question, I want you to put a what in front of it.
Okay.
You know, so do you have any evidence? What do you have as evidence? Or what evidence do you have? Either way, but you know, it's just easy to put the one word in front of it. You know, do you have a personal feeling? What do you have as a personal feeling, or what do you have that's running around, you know, in your mind that's making you feel this way? It'll force you to reframe that whole sentence, by putting the what in front of it. So those two, I want you to work on the is and the do questions. That's going to help you with open-ended questions. And then, so acknowledges talents, insights, and work. You did that very well. You did it several times throughout the conversation. I think you're very supportive, you know, empathetic. You showed concern. You acknowledge the words and the, you know, the expressions that she used. So that was all done well. And I'm just going down my sheet. So, there was a lot that you did well. The coaching agreement was the first thing on there. So,
You gave it to me, but I didn't lock it in from my side. I didn't confirm it from my side. I knew it, but I didn't do the act of the transactional pieces. Okay, this is what we're going to do.
well, yeah, and well, the thing is that you didn't have an exact outcome, right? She didn't offer up an exact outcome, and nothing that was measurable.
Yes.
So even though we know what she wanted to get at, like we knew contextually what she wanted to get out of the conversation, we don't know the specific outcome, and we don't know that it's measurable. So at the end, we could say, you know, you wanted to have such and such, and this was how you were going to know that you had it. Have we reached that? Have we been successful? We didn't have anything like that. So you definitely want to have that, you know, that measurement and that outcome. Okay. So competency 4 cultivates trust and safety. I think you did really well there. 5 for maintains presence. You know, there's a little bit of a half and half with this. You, I think that you coached the whole person, like you picked up on the feelings that Allison was, you know, the fear and the feelings that she had around this particular task of getting, you know, reaching out to old colleagues. But also the flip side is that there were times where you were making statements versus asking questions. Which actually comes across as like assumptions, because you're making these statements. For instance, well, the one you said, like, feeling broke is less bad than yada yada. So the client never brought up broke. You don't ever want to introduce new terms to the conversation. You want to use with the client's language. And she was like right away, no, I don't mean broke. Like, you know, so there was a little bit of a reaction to that, right? To that term. So you have to be careful about terms that you introduce. And then again, kind of the statement of, I'm hearing you, yada, yada, logically, and yada, but the fear, and like you went on this whole long thing of like, of kind of like analyzing. There, it's not necessary, right? We don't need that statement. Ask a question there. And then there was one part where you said you already yada yada, but there's something holding you back. So again, a statement, instead of saying you already yada yada, what could potentially be holding you back? So what's more powerful for the client? What could be holding you back, or something's holding you back? Like, that's your opinion. So it's a statement where we want to ask the client. So that interferes with presence. When we're making statements versus asking questions, then we're not coaching really around the agenda, especially if we don't have a specific agenda. But it interferes with coaching the person because we're interjecting what we think, and it kind of comes across as what is instead of exploring what is. Does that make sense? So stay in a state of curiosity about your client by asking questions versus, making statements or giving your opinion. I think you explored her words, which was great. You definitely explored her emotions. You explored the energy shift. That was done well. You interrupted once, but I think that was just otherwise you weren't really interrupting.
That's where I thought my biggest struggle was going to be, and it doesn't seem to be, which is
I don't think
strange to
so.
me.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think you can give more space, but I don't think you're interrupting. And then again, we kind of talked about the questions, the evoke awareness. So we want open-ended questions because that's going to evoke awareness. That's going to help expand beyond the who. You asked questions about current. That was, you did that well. You want to expand the topic of the what and the who. That's going to be those open-ended questions. Expanding on the outcome. Well, you didn't have the specific outcome, so there weren't really questions geared towards specific outcomes. So you can't really expand on it if you don't have it. So, you did share, opinions. And again, if you do share an opinion, if it's gonna come down to where you feel like you have to share something, make sure that you're then following it up with a question for the client to accept or reject it. So what I think, what I'm observing, yada, yada, is that correct? Or how do you feel about that? Does that make sense? Or, something that's going to ask the client to examine it.
I usually do. I don't know where it went in that moment. I usually do. Even if
Yeah.
it's as simple as, does that make sense? Like, this is what I'm experiencing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which will usually send them off in another. Right. So I don't know why I didn't.
Again, you're new to it. This is what, your third time coaching or something. Yeah. So, and then of course the facilitates client growth. There was no real action plan. So when Allison had that kind of that awareness and that it was a fear, and that, towards the end where there was more of a tangible, thought process that she had, ask for an action item. So what can you do? What's a step you can take to, to further your, reaching out to these people now that you have this understanding?
Solidification. Yeah.
Yeah. And then always you want to cover obstacles and challenges, or obstacles and accountability, but you didn't really have any action items to do that around. But that's typically on every call that you're going to have something that you can say, okay, what can get in the way? What are the challenges that you're going to face?
Okay.
And then, how will you follow through? How will you support yourself, or what kind of support do you need to follow through on that?
These are all anchored on the contract too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of this is based on that's why if you don't have that coaching agreement, your whole session goes up in flames.
Mhm.
So that's why I said, focus in on that first. These other things, a lot of these will follow just by having an agreement. Some will still need work on, but you know, most of them are gonna have at least a piece of it, when you have a good agreement.
Right.
So how do you feel with that feedback? It was a lot, but how do you feel with that?
I agree.
Okay,
It's hard for me to talk about it because I have not it fully internalized all of the elements that like at some point that entire sheet will be burned into my brain and I'll just be able to go item by item by item. What I need to do is create some sort of a graphic that makes sense to me, and I've been playing around with doodling it. But if the contract agreement is in the center of it, then everything else just sort of floats around, and they're almost inevitable questions, right?
Yeah.
If I could just get grounded in that one. And I don't actually know what holds me. Sometimes I'm on the ball and sometimes I'm not. And the funny thing is with my counseling clients, I'm not having any trouble getting that contract. So I don't
Yeah,
know what's happening between counseling, although I counsel right up until 3 o'clock and then class starts. So I haven't changed hats, but like I said, I'm trying to counsel the way I would coach because I believe it's more effective.
yeah.
So
One
I
of
can
the things
work the other way, but this way is awkward.
yeah. Well, one of the things you can do is you can use that framework that I gave you,
Mhm.
is step by step, right? Even if you have to for the next like 2 coaching sessions or whatever, is like look at it and go straight through it. It's going to take from your presence, but it's also going to start to help you ingrain those habits.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of having that in front of you and working from that. And then, I mean, you can't keep doing it that way, but you can do it to try and get that rhythm for yourself.
Well, if I can get it in an acronym, then I know how to move somewhat systematically through it. The problem is it's not always in a straight line.
Well, no, because the client leads, so it's not always going to be in order. But again,
There was an acronym in the book though, contract. There was an acronym.
Yes, true.
yeah. But again, it's not forever, right? It's just if you're going to be, if it's a little prescribed for the 2 sessions that you're trying to ingrain this, that's fine. You'll let that go afterwards, but then you have all the pieces in your mind, then you can move around in it easier.
Mhm.
But anyway, so, okay, so try to play with that, see what you come up with and try to look at the next 2 sessions, just, you know, following that roadmap. Monday night we have mentoring, so you don't have a chapter to read. Your next chapter will be for next Wednesday.
So what's mentoring include?
We're just gonna go over core competencies and,
Okay,
yeah, and some markers, just kind of go a little bit deeper into the markers.
And that's going to be on the 14th. No,
no,
on the
21st,
16th right now. That'll be the
Monday,
21st.
yeah, 21st. I mean, hang on.
no, because I have court until I don't know when on that day, but I don't have any class listed that day. The next day that I have is, why
Wait,
does it go into November on me here?
Oh, yeah,
Hold
you
on,
don't
let me
have
look.
class next week. That's right.
Yeah. So
So
it
the
is the
group
28th,
mentoring,
but it's of October.
it's October 28th is the next class.
Okay, so we're off next week. Okay.
Yeah.
You're off next week. Yeah.
And then, okay, so we have next week, then we have 2 weeks on, then we have 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on.
Yeah, no class next week and then 2 weeks on, and then you have the next mentoring week. So I need, your second recordings are due to me by
Oh, wow.
November 4th, and Bonnie, your first one's due to me now, like as soon as you have it.
Well, I don't have, yeah, I need to get you my first one too. So,
Well, yeah, that's right.
I don't
That
have
and the EQ results as
Yeah,
well.
EQ we're gonna do towards the end of the course, so I'm not worried about that right now.
Mine says I might be going through something.
it.
Well, let's
Pretty
work on the
good.
first. So let's get a recording to me as soon as possible. We'll make up the first, the first review was for that recording. And then the second one, the second recording is due by November 4th. Now, I don't know if you're gonna be able to do two before then. Maybe we just say the first one's due by the 4th of November. And we'll use that mentoring week, November 11th, as the first review. We'll just do it that way since neither of you have a recording already. And then we'll find time towards the end to make up that, if we need it, to make up a third one. We'll do it that way. It'll just be easier, not confusing to try to get two in before, November 4th, because that's only a couple weeks away. So recording to me by November 4th, and then we'll go over that during our mentoring week of November 11th. Okay?
Mhm.
Good for both of you?
So if I get you a call early next week, will we be able to review it next week or no? Because I don't know if I want to send you the one now, and I'm gonna be gone the next 2 days, so I'll have to figure out when to get you a call, but.
Yeah, no, we won't. I mean, we won't be able to. I like I said, I think we should just wait for the week of November.
Yeah, but I owe you 3, okay, yeah, I'll do what I can, I'll get calls.
Yeah. And, again, if it's November 4th, then that's fine. And also, Allison, if we need to go a little bit further because you're not at your, because we need 2 recordings, we can do that the first week in January or something, if it comes down to that, but I don't think we're gonna need it.
Okay, we'll see.
All
Okay,
right, guys.
so we'll see you
so
in a
next-
week and a half, yeah.
Yeah, next week we're off. Now, if you do get a recording, send it to me and we'll set up something next week, but if
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, and good luck, Bonnie, with everything. Be
Yeah.
thinking
Thank you,
about you.
Erin.
And
Stay
we'll
safe.
see you back here on the week of the 28th.
Stay safe. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.